Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're building something that I did not really plan to build. It actually just happened. I actually built it pretty quickly, so compared to how long it takes me to build something that was finished quite soon after I started it. However, it took me ages to make this video and to edit this video and to finish everything up. So yeah, there were several reasons for this. I might get into this a little bit later, but yeah, I finally did it. So I can finally share this video. I wanted to share this way sooner. As I mentioned in my last video, I actually said that I was back from my winter break, but yeah, it took me way longer than expected to finish this. But yeah, here we are. So this is yeah, I'm not exactly sure what this is, so I didn't really know what to call it. I think I'm going to end up calling it something like a modern Komorebi home, because it's obviously built in Mount Komorebi and it is also pretty modern. So yeah, very creative. But yeah, the inspiration behind this was, or there were different things that made me want to build this, and one of them was that during the Christmas sale, so in January or December, I don't quite remember, I got some of the packs that I was still missing, and one of them was SnowyEscape. And because it was like 60% off, I finally decided to buy it. So of course I wanted to build something using this pack. And also while I was browsing Pinterest, I had found some pictures of modern homes. One of them was some sort of a concept art render. I'm not quite sure. I don't think it was a real house, but it was a modern, almost a tiny home, or probably not quite a tiny home, but it seemed pretty small. It was very modern, and it also had a floor plan coming with this render. So I thought it would be a great idea to recreate in The Sims. And so that's what I decided to do. So I just went into Mount Komorebi. I, of course, chose the smallest lot size. So this is a 20 by 15 lot because I'm kind of terrified by bigger lot sizes. And yeah, I tried to recreate this render. It was a little bit more difficult than it seemed at first, because I was a little bit confused by this render, because from the angle that the build was shown on this picture, I couldn't really tell. I'm not sure how to explain this, but you see this little veranda, this front porch that is sticking out of the build. And on this render, it actually looked like it was kind of cutting inside this main cube of the building. I don't really know if this makes any sense, but it was some sort of an optical illusion. I couldn't really tell from the render where it started and where it ended, and it wasn't really lining up with the floor plan. So I think I had to bulldoze it like 3 times because I was so confused. I don't really know why, because it's not that much of a complicated shape, but it looked super weird on this render. So yeah, after some time I had figured it out and I could continue working on it. I was struggling a little bit with the window placement. I didn't build it exactly as it's shown on the floor plan and on this concept art, so I took some freedom here and there, and I actually like how it turned out. I'm not a really huge fan of these types of modern builds, but I was kind of satisfied with how it turned out in the end. There was a lot of trial and error, and I had some ideas that I later decided not to continue, so in the end I think it turned out okay. Also, the concept art, it was not a Japanese build whatsoever. It was just a random modern home. But because I wanted to build in Mount Komorebi and I wanted to use the new stuff, it's not new. It's several years old by now, but for me it's very new. So I wanted to use as many of these objects as possible. So I also tried to implement some aspects of Japanese architecture. You will notice, or you already saw, like I included this area, this lower area where you take off your shoes and things like that, and I tried to make the toilet separated from the bathroom, but I didn't really use any Japanese builds as a reference. I think I watched one YouTube tour of a Japanese modern home, but I mainly used this one concept up from Pinterest, so that's why I didn't really want to call it a Japanese home, because it's more Japanese inspired, and I just decided to call it a Komorebi home because it was more about just playing around with the stuff from this pack, and I didn't try to exactly recreate an actual Japanese home, so yeah, I wanted to avoid using this for the title. Also here I'm adding this little bump out to the left side of the build. It's not going to stay there. I'm going to delete the upper part and going to extend the lower part a little bit. I just felt that the build was not very balanced, so the shape of the build looked a little bit off. I felt there was something missing at the left side of this build. Also because I decided to use a mix of this white concrete wallpaper and this kind of traditional looking wooden wallpaper from SnowyEscape. And I think I felt that there was a need to put this wallpaper that I had mainly used on the right side, on the lower cube of this build, also on the left side, because otherwise the left side would have just been this cube, this white cube of concrete. It looked a little bit bare and empty, and I just wanted to add this little bump out, but in the end I didn't really like it, so I only extended the kitchen on the lower part of the build, which turned out to be quite a good decision, because before that I wasn't very happy with how the furniture in the kitchen and the bedroom on the first floor and everything was lining up with the windows, and in the moment where I extended the kitchen on the ground floor, everything was working out. So that was a good decision, but this part on the top that I added, I'm going to remove this later on. So a lot of the time I spent on this build I needed for the landscaping. It's very, very lush, very natural. I also decided to add some plants on the rooftop and on the little side roofs because, as I mentioned before, the build felt very bare and boring to me. I felt there was something missing, so I decided to put the plants on the roofs. I don't really know if that would make sense in real life, but it looked very nice in The Sims, and it also added some sort of eco vibes to this build. It also made it look less cold and less, I don't know how to say it, but it just looked softer and nicer and a little bit more friendly. So I like the atmosphere that the plants added to this house. And I also added lots of rocks to the landscaping. And one of the rocks that I added right in front of this build with the tool mod turned out to be kind of a problem. So it caused me some routing issues. I will talk about this later when we get to the interior. I was a little bit in despair when this happened because I couldn't figure out right away that this rock was causing the issues, but when I found it out, it was a very easy problem to fix, and so now this shouldn't cause you any problems if you decide to download this build. It will be up on the gallery to download, and it's also completely playtested. There was one issue that I could not completely solve. I'm going to talk about this when we get to the kitchen. And it's still causing me headaches because I don't really know why it's happening and what is actually the problem. But yeah, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about this sometime later. Now, the landscaping took me a lot of time, as I mentioned. Again, I had to take out a lot of the footage because it would have taken ages. I hope it's not too confusing, and I still think, again, like I think this is happening with all of my builds, I still think that I could have taken out even more of the footage, but I also didn't want to remove all of it. I didn't want it to get tedious to watch. Yeah, I hope you're not too bored, and I hope it's not too confusing, so I hope I just found the right balance. And yeah, so another thing that caused the finishing process of this build and of this video to take me such a long time was also my perfectionism, because while I was watching the footage, while I was editing the footage for the video, I noticed that I had missed some details, and these were just minor details, but after I noticed them, I kind of couldn't ignore them, and so I had the feeling that I had to go back to fix them. One of them is the spandrels on these little roof pieces on the balconies. So you notice how there's this one balcony on top, and then there's this small side porch that has the grill on it, and they have these small or very narrow black roofs, and I used this thick black spandrel from SnowyEscape on the edges of these roof pieces, but I did not use the spandrels in front of them, and that was kind of bugging me out when I was watching the footage. I know it's not really very important, and I was thinking about just leaving it the way it was, but for some reason it was really annoying to look at for me, so I went back to fix this, and then I realized that I had already taken my screenshots, and that on some of the screenshots you could see that the spandrels were missing in the front of these roofs. And I kind of felt the need to go back and redo my screenshots. And I know I'm making my life unnecessarily hard, and I could just decide not to do this. It probably is a waste of time, but I feel if I ignored it, I would have done it halfway, and I don't want to do that. And yeah, and then I was procrastinating on going back to do the screenshots because it's always a little bit tedious, and I also want to always catch the best lighting. And again, I was making my life unnecessarily hard, but I finally could convince myself to finish up this video. It's really not that I don't want to finish it or that I'm not having fun doing this, but it's just that sometimes I cannot really find energy and motivation even for things that I want to do. So yeah, that's kind of a me problem, but yeah, I made it, and I said in earlier videos that I would really like to be able to upload a video once a week, but for now it seems more realistic that it's a once a month thing. But yeah, we're going to see where this is going. You also see me playing around with some debug plans. I used them in another build before. Someone on Instagram mentioned that you could rotate these lying plants, so you can use them as wall covering plants, so to say. And I wanted to do this in this build because, as I said before, I thought everything looked too bare, too blank, and I wanted to use these plants to cover up the walls. I went back and forth with these plants. I didn't really like them. I didn't like how they look. It was a little bit too much for this type of modern build. So in the end, I kind of ended up deleting them. But yeah, it was very chaotic, and I'm going to swap them out for some other growing plants, or how are they called in English? I don't know, but I'm going to swap them out for some other similar plants, and then I'm going to decide to delete them completely. So that was a little bit of a mess, but yeah, I still thought everything was a little bit too bare, so I just placed a lot of bamboo trees to just make everything look even more lush and green. And as I mentioned before, it looked okay in the end. It could have been worse. Again, I wasn't 100% happy with it, but I feel like I can never really achieve this for my build, so I think it was okay. Also, the whole landscaping thing and how the roofs are covered with plants, that is not what you can see in these typical Japanese gardens. But again, I wasn't really trying to recreate a typically Japanese build or even traditional Japanese architecture. I might try to do this in the future, but I would need to do way more research. And here was just like, as I said, I just wanted to play around with all the stuff from the SnowyEscape expansion. And it actually is a very pack restricted build, so it's not a one pack build, but I only ended up using 4 expansions, or not expansions, but 4 packs or 3 packs and 1 kit. So for this build I used SnowyEscape, then also DineOut, the FitnessStuff pack, and the DesertLuxe kit. So it's a very accessible build. It only uses 4 packs, so yeah, it might be convenient for many people who want to download this. And I also love doing pack restricted build because it really makes you use objects that you wouldn't normally use and makes you explore the catalog a little bit more. So it was a really fun thing to do. I'm also really sorry if I sound like I have a stuffed nose. The reason for this is that I have a stuffed nose. It's not that I have a cold, but I think I might have some sort of a house dust allergy. And I'm currently staying at my parents' home, and we were doing some sort of house cleaning, and maybe we were just in contact with lots of dust and things like that, and I think that's affecting my nose, and that's a little bit annoying. I'm not sure if that's the issue, but it looks like a reasonable explanation, and I really noticed while I was editing my voiceovers that my voice sounds a little bit off, so I'm sorry for that. I'm pretty sure it's going to go away once we're done with the house cleaning, but yeah, so far we've got to live with that. Now, I'm always losing track of what's happening on screen. So we are almost on the interior. One last thing I want to mention about the exterior is that one problem I encountered was kind of caused by me being super stupid, because I placed plants everywhere and I wanted to place the plants also under the front porch, because it's on this stilted foundation, and it looked a little bit stupid if there only was like bare earth under it. So I used the tool mod to push some plants under this foundation, so it would look like there are plants growing under the stilted foundation. However, I did not consider that for the game. Even though the foundation looks like it's a little bit away from the ground, for the game it's still on ground level. So when I push plants under this foundation with the tool mod, it blocked my sim's path. My sim couldn't enter the house through the main entrance because the whole front porch was blocked by these plants. So what I did was that I removed this entire section of plants and I placed it all in the basement and then lifted it up from the basement. So now it's technically on the lower floor and it doesn't block my sim's path. I play tested it again and again and now it works, so you should be fine with that. And with that being said, we are on the interior now. At first I was building this little entrance area, which I think is called a ginkan in Japanese. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, but it's the area where you step in and where you take off your shoes before you actually enter the main living area of the house. I was trying to close it off with a fence or a half wall, but the problem was that every time I tried to do this, it would delete the stairs that were placed above it, so I had to find a workaround for this. And at first I used this space game debug plank, or I'm not really sure what it is. I think it's just some sort of fence, but I didn't really like the color. And later I'm going to replace it with an object from SnowyEscape, which is some sort of a shutter, and it just had the wood texture and the same swatch as the wallpaper, and so I thought it was more fitting. I used the tool mod to make this work, and it worked really, really nice in the end, and it made for a great fence. There's one bathroom on the ground floor, which is a half bathroom. It just has this toilet and a sink, but you're going to find a bathroom with a shower on the upper floor, and there's also another toilet in a separate room. And yeah, it's very simple. There's not much to say about this. And we're getting to the kitchen. And now the kitchen, it's this is the biggest problem in the house. You're going to see, or you're seeing how I'm placing this lamp above the counters. I'm also going to place a sink in the middle counter, and that obviously was a problem. So for some reason, and I don't really know why, when I playtested it, my sim was not able to wash any dishes in the sink. And I don't really know why that is, because I did place some clutter in the kitchen, obviously. I placed some clutter in these open cabinets, and I'm going to place a towel and things like that, but nothing of that would normally block a sink. And it also wasn't completely blocked because my sim was able to wash his hands and to take a glass of water, but he wasn't able to wash the dishes. And I thought that it was something under the counters that blocked the sink from working, but then I tested it again and it still wasn't working. And I don't really know why only this interaction, like the washing the dishes interaction, doesn't really seem to work with the sink. I tried to delete the lamp above the counters and that really seemed to solve the issues. However, I really, really liked how this lamp looked above the counters, and I didn't really feel like removing the lamp. And also, sometimes it worked when I was just moving the lamp to the side, then went back to live mode, then went back to build mode and moved the lamp back to the exact same spot where it was before, and then suddenly my sim was able to wash the dishes. So I don't actually understand what's the problem here. I also deleted all the other objects, that all the ones that you're going to see me putting on these empty slots on the counters, but it really didn't seem to solve anything. So I think if you're downloading this and you're having the same issue where your sim is not able to wash any dishes in the sink, then you might have to delete the lamp. This is probably the best solution. I don't really understand at all why the lamp would be blocking the sink, or rather make this one interaction with the sink impossible. It might be because this area of the living space of the kitchen is on a platform. It's like on a one-level platform. And I don't know, maybe therefore the room is not high enough anymore, and that's why the lamp is kind of conflicting with the sink. But I don't really understand it, and I was trying so long to make this work, but I also did didn't really want to delete the lamp because it also worked after I moved the lamp around, so I don't really know what's going on. So if you download this and you have the same problem, your best way to solve this would be to just delete the lamp completely, or you just have to move the lamp to a different spot and go into live mode, go back into build mode, and then move the lamp back to where it was, and then it should work. But it will probably cause new issues as soon as you load into the lot again. So I'm really sorry for this. I really would just love to upload something and tell you that it's 100% functional, but I really couldn't figure out what was actually the main reason for this problem. And so in the end, I was just so done with this. I was so frustrated that I left it as it was. So I'm really sorry for this. This is the only real issue that there was with this build, and I couldn't really find the solution because I couldn't really find a reason why it was a problem. Yeah, that was a really long rant. I'm so sorry. And also, I sometimes don't know if this is just something I did wrong that is causing the issues, or if it's a glitch within the game. I don't really know, and I'm really trying to avoid things like that in the future. But yeah, now for this, that's how it is. I'm also going to write a comment when I upload this build, so people who download it will know what's going on. But apart from this, everything is working. But now enough about this. I feel I've been talking about this for half an hour, so let's just take a look at what else is going on in this build. So for the interior, I really try to stick to the floor plan that came with the concept art, and I think it is pretty accurate in general. So on the floor plans, there actually also was a basement. It was optional, so there was just some additional bedrooms, and I decided not to recreate the basement because basements are not really working like in real life in The Sims 4, so we cannot really add windows to a basement because we cannot add windows to foundations and things like that, so it doesn't really work how it would work in real life, and I didn't really want to build a basement for this build, so I did it without that. But everything else is pretty close to the original floor plan, I'd say. For example, in the living room, I'm going to add a fireplace under one of the windows, and I'm also going to remove the second window. The fireplace was definitely on the floor plan, and there also was this window. I don't really know if that would work if this house was actually real, so I don't know how ventilation works with these modern fireplaces, but I just recreated it as it was on the floor plan. So I don't know if this would make sense, but it looked nice. It looked very nice. And I also used these couches from SnowyEscape, and I think they look really nice in that space. And there's also this bookcase from this pack that looked very nice at the back of this couch. I rotated one of them and put it next to the other one to just give the idea of one big bookshelf that was kind of symmetrical. And these bookshelves are not functional because they are blocked by the couch. However, I'm going to place some of the base game book clutter objects on the fireplace, and they work like a bookcase as long as there is slotting to a surface. So your sim can then grab a book from this pile of books as long as there's another filled bookshelf in the house. You're going to see this later, and I'm also adding another purely decorative bookshelf next to the dining table. I just thought it looked nice and I wanted to place something there. I didn't really know what to do with this space in front of this fence that I built, and I just thought another bookshelf would be nice because I think you can never have enough books in a house. And with all the new additional swatches that we got for these books in some recent base game update, I really think that you can add a lot of interest to a space just by the color schemes you can create. So yeah, it was just for decoration. I don't think that Sims can take books from this custom bookshelf, but again, if you click on one of these book piles, your Sim will just go to the books on the fireplace and take the books from there, because that's accessible, and I really wanted to make sure that your Sim doesn't have to go up the stairs to take a book from the bookshelf that I'm going to be putting in the bedroom. So it all works fine, and I think it works well for gameplay, and you shouldn't have any problems with that. And here you can see me placing all of these books. Again, these ones are just for decoration. And in general, if you want to make this book clutter work, it has to be slotted to a surface, as far as I know from my experience, to be functional. And then the problem is also that they work as a bookshelf, but they have no books in them, if this makes any sense. So you will have to have another regular bookshelf in your house to make them work. Or I haven't really tried that, but you could potentially also buy some books and then manually drag the books in this object to make it work. But I will have to go and try this. But yeah, I'm still adding some more objects to the interior, and you can also see me adding objects around the fireplace, and I'm also adding the books on the fireplace. And in this case they work, as I said, because they are slotted. And I'm also going to add some more, and as I said, probably already 5 times, it is going to work as a bookshelf, so you should be fine. Now, apart from that, I realized that I haven't really talked a lot about some basic information about this build. So apparently I mentioned that I built it in Mount Komorebi, but specifically, as you can also read in the upper left corner of the screen, if you look very closely, I built it on on 241 Wakabamori, so that's a lot in the more modern neighborhood of Mount Komorebi, and I think on the map it's in the lower right corner, and it's a 1 bedroom and 1.5 bathroom build, so I already talked about the bathrooms, and well, there's 1 bedroom on the upper floor, so I thought it would be a great place for either a single sim or a couple. It is a residential lot right now, but I thought it would also work well as a holiday rental because it's also not super cluttered. I know some people would probably disagree with me, but I tried to tone the cluttering down just a little bit compared to what I normally do. Also because of this minimalism that I kind of relate to Japanese interior design, but yeah, also just because I thought that it could also be a great place to rent if your Sims want to stay in Mount Komorebi. And I'm not sure if I missed any really important information. Oh, so the price, I think the price is about 60,000 simoleons. Could have been cheaper, but still think it's okay. And there are also several activities for your Sims to do. So I'm going to place a telescope on the side porch, and there are also planters on the balcony and a bonsai tree. So your Sims should find lots of things to do and for skill building. And yeah, I think that's it. If I forgot about any information, you'll also find it in the description box down below, where you can always find everything you might want to know about a build. And if I still did miss anything, just feel free to leave a comment down below. Now, one last issue that I was struggling with in this build was the stairs. So I encountered a really weird thing where my sim was able to walk up the stairs, but then they were not able to walk down the stairs again. And when that happened, I was so devastated because I really thought that was a bug I couldn't fix and that my build basically was ruined. Because I had encountered this one time before when I downloaded someone else's build from the gallery, and the creator of this build had left a comment saying that they had playtested the build, but they had this exact same issue. So Sims could walk up the stairs but not down anymore, and they had tried anything and couldn't find a solution for this problem. So then I downloaded this build and I tried to look into it and to find a fix for this. Like, I don't know why I would find something or try something that they wouldn't have already tried to do, but you know how it is that sometimes when you're struggling with a problem and you cannot really find what's causing it, and then the second person just looks at a thing once and they immediately see what's going on. Yeah, I just thought that maybe 4 eyes would see more than two, if that makes sense. So I tried to figure out what was going on, and I really couldn't find any solution. I deleted half of the build and my sim still wasn't able to walk down the stairs. And I felt so bad for the creator of this build because it really looked so nice. It was such a nice family home, and it was basically unusable for gameplay because of this weird problem with the stairs. So when this happened in this build, I immediately thought it was the same situation and that it was practically something that I couldn't fix. And then I just started to delete several objects around the stairs that I thought could possibly be the reason for the stairs not functioning properly. And it turned out that it was actually one of the rocks that I had placed in front of the building. I mentioned this in the first half of this voiceover. So the rock was partly in the foundation. I had moved it there with tool mod, and for some reason it was conflicting with the stairs. So all I had to do was to move the rock a bit to the right, and then everything was working. And I've playtested it several times since then, and I didn't have any other issues, so this problem could be solved. So the only thing that's still a known issue is the whole kitchen counter situation, but yeah. Okay, so I feel I've talked over the entire bedroom, but honestly there's not even that much to say about this room. It's pretty simple, and apart from a bed, obviously, there's also a TV, so I couldn't fit one in the living area downstairs, so I decided to put one on a side table next to the stairs, so your Sims can watch TV from their bed. There's also a walk-in closet, which you saw me furnishing some minutes ago. And then there's also the balcony with the planters that I already mentioned. There's also this bonsai tree and 2 lounges for your sim to relax. The walk-in closet was inspired by the floor plan that I used as a reference, if I remember correctly. So even this floor plan included a walk-in closet, so that's actually accurate to the reference I used. And yeah, apart from that, there's not really a lot to say about this space. I kind of feel that I forgot to talk about something that I wanted to mention, but I cannot quite remember, so I hope it wasn't that important. No, so I also mentioned in my last video that I was working on a castle because of the castle estate kit. Obviously this is not a castle, and I'm still working on this castle, so I'm still planning on finishing it. I just have no idea when it's going to happen, because I really want to finish it, and I really love building builds like that, but I'm also a little bit terrified by the challenge because it's such a huge build. It's on a 50 by 50 lot, and I'm a little bit hesitant to go back and continue working on it, but I definitely plan on finishing it. It's probably not going to be the next build or video on the channel, but someday it's going to come. Oh, and I almost forgot about some Sims news, because there was a new pack announced, a new stuff pack called Crystal Creations, and apparently it's coming out at the end of February. And in this pack we're going to be able to create jewelry out of crystals and metals that we can collect in game. And I watched the trailer, and I quite like the aesthetic of the build buy stuff and of the CAS items. So the style looks quite nice, quite whimsical, magical. I really feel it would go great with Realm of Magic. And it looks quite nice. I'm not yet sure what to think about the gameplay. I'm not sure if the gameplay is something that really adds a lot to the game. So there was also a blog post, and I think it stated that with this pack you'll be able to create more than 1,000 different types or variations of jewelry, which sounds really great. So there's also going to be a gameplay walkthrough before the pack comes out, so yeah, I'll definitely be watching this to find out more about the gameplay. It looks kind of interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learn more about it. I'm kind of surprised that they're already releasing this stuff pack now, because the roadmap that we currently have covers the whole time from January to April. So if the stuff pack releases still in February, for the last 2 months we only have 2 kits left. So maybe they'll do another behind the Sims stream or something. And also I was kind of hoping that they would be focusing more on bug fixes before the new stuff pack would release. There's obviously going to be a patch before the stuff pack comes out, and they announced some bug fixes, but there's really a lot of stuff that isn't working right now as far as I've heard, especially with For Rent, and I think all the save corruption issues are just very serious and something that should have the priority now. I'm always excited if something new comes out for Sims, but on the other hand, there are so many issues with what we have in the game right now that obviously it would just be nice for them to go back and fix that, but anyway, I'm still kind of interested in the new pack. We're going to see what's happening. So we are getting really close to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. It would be very much appreciated and it would really help the channel to grow. If you're interested in this build, it will be up on the gallery for download. My ID is LaTalpaVolante and it's also the same on Tumblr and Instagram if you want to check that out. I hope to be back very soon with another video, and in the meantime, stay safe, have a great week, and bye!